My name is Sonia Correa, and I am Sitlali Correa's mom and Stephen and Anthony's mom as well.
Well, my name is Donna Levitt.
And I'm Rob.
And we have 4 children. We have Jeremiah, who is Rob's birth son, and I adopted him when he was a teenager. His birth mom abandoned him when he was 2. And then we have Aaliyah, who's our only birth child, and then we adopted Tessa from the foster care system. She was safely surrendered when she was 18 hours old at a fire station in Los Angeles. And then our youngest is Bobby Marie. She's 12. Tessa's 14 now. Aaliyah's 18, and Bobby Marie's 12. And she was placed into care when she was almost 7 years old, and she's in 7th grade.
All right, my name is Pamela Tonin.
And I'm Bill.
And in our family, we have. For our family here in our home, we have our granddaughter, Maddie. She's 23. We have Annabella, who will be 13 on Friday. And Ariana, who is 11.
When they first came to live with us, it was very challenging because I had Sitlali, Stephen, and their little brother Abel, and they were all in diapers. So it was very challenging. Both my husband and I faced were that there was a lot of, I think they had a lot of trauma, obviously, and Stephen could not walk yet, and we had to get him into therapy. They both needed therapy desperately.
So we used to call her the mini volcano. And I think that's pretty typical of a child who comes out of trauma. I can't even imagine being 6 years old, yanked out of 1st grade, taken to someone's home, having visits with your birth family that is all you've known, and weekly, not knowing what's going to happen, and then boom, 6 months later, you were with another family.
It seemed pretty obvious that she had been looking after her mom, at least her birth mom, before, because she kept track of everything. She was watching the clock. Don't you have to do this? Isn't this going to happen? When did it?
She still does that.
The biggest challenge was our youngest, because she had experienced so much trauma, and I honestly didn't know if I was equipped, or we were equipped to deal with some of her behaviors. And so that was the biggest challenge, in finding the right amount of help and the right...
That's where kids and families came in.
Yeah.
Kids and family played a major role in our life, and they still do. They came in as soon as Lolly, for example, when she came into our home, she cried a lot. It was very difficult for her. And so once we got the clinician coming to our home, things completely changed for her. I mean, she just calmed down, and it helped tremendously.
So it was a learning curve for all of us, but sitting at that table for 18 hours and learning a new way of parenting and being much more in touch with and aware of that felt safety that she needed, and how to give that, and how to make my cadence in my voice of a certain, so that my authority was being communicated, but my love was being communicated more, that she felt loved, that she felt safe, and that she knew that she was here forever and she was okay.
I was driving down the street and I looked and I saw this sign that said kinship, and I almost got in a car accident looking and twisting my neck seeing that. And I turned around and I looked at the sign, and it was kids and families, and it said kinship, adoption, and I don't know what the three things on the logo. And it took me a little while to muster up the strength to give them a call. And I'm gonna cry because, it felt like really somebody understood. Family doesn't understand, and even though we had supportive friends, they don't understand. Nobody understands the challenges that kinship families have. They're kind of alone. They're not foster families, and but this was a whole company that was there to help kinship families, and it was amazing. So we made the phone call, and I felt like I was going to get some help and support, which was desperately needed, especially after we got our third child.
So I was thinking 3.5 years, but at about the 1.5 year mark, we had this pivotal experience, she and I. So here's our typical sit at the dining room table and try to do homework. Just try. She really needed me more as a mom, to hold her, to nurture her, to love her. She did not want me as an educator at all. But I was it to do homework. And so I would sit next to her and we would try to do homework, and it would be very frustrating. She didn't want to do it. It drove her nuts to do homework. So here's one situation. We're sitting at the dining room table and we're writing out words. I don't remember if it was spelling or vocabulary, and she takes the paper, crumples it up into a ball, throws it across the room, and I was just like, and she takes her glasses and throws those across the room. And in frustration, I said, "Bobby Marie, what do you need?" And she crawled into my lap, and she put her legs around me, and she put her arms around me, and she said, "I need you to hold me as tight as you can." And I was just so stunned. And I grabbed her and I held her, and she goes, "No, tighter." And I held her tighter. She goes, "No, as tight as you can." And I thought, I'm gonna squeeze her guts out. But I held her as tight as I could, and she broke. And she cried and cried and cried for like 20 minutes. When she was done, I was just like, if I let up, she would say, "No, tight." And I know that people had told us about the idea of a weighted blanket and a weighted vest. She wanted a weighted mama. She needed that to just release all that pain. When she was done crying, she climbed off my lap, she sat down in her chair, she went over, she picked up the paper, picked up her glasses, smoothed it out, started doing her homework like nothing had happened. I learned so much that day about how to ask her. I didn't realize she knew what she needed.
Anthony's mom has been sober for months now, and she did it because it impacted her so much when my son was removed from her. So this has helped her tremendously because she knows she can call me, she can text me. I give her words of encouragement, and sending her pictures of Anthony as he grows up has really encouraged her.
So our connection to her birth family, her birth mom and I exchanged email addresses before the adoption, before the last visit. And I set up an anonymous email address because we didn't feel that it was safe with some of the people that her birth mom were involved with to disclose our identity. But we wanted to keep in touch with her so that she would know that Bobby was safe and how she was growing and how she was doing. So I have had regular contact with her over the last 5 years. That's her primary identity. She was 7 years with her birth family. And then I don't want her to feel that that is a bad part of her life, even though they made poor choices. I want her to celebrate her birth family and love her birth family, because that impacts her sense of who she is and her sense of how valuable she is. I don't want her to feel that any part of her is bad. And so I think it's really important that she sees her birth family in a celebratory way.
It is a challenge because she's my daughter, and I love her so much, but I had to let go of her because you have to concentrate on your children that you're in charge of. You can't focus on the adult. You really have to focus on the innocent children. And I didn't have enough energy to try to keep a relationship. Well, you can't really keep a relationship with somebody who's using drugs. But she's been doing quite well in the past few years. And so we're working on having more of a relationship and having the kids see her more. I think it's totally important for children to see their birth parents and to know them.
I think one of the things that I would share, that I would tell people about adoption, it's a beautiful thing. And never introduce your children as adoptive children. Always introduce them as your children, because they are yours. And just do whatever you can for them to help them with their trauma, and because you will learn so much from them.
My advice to adoptive parents is, don't sweat the small stuff. Don't do it the same way. If you have birth children, don't do it the same way you did it with your birth children. You cannot do it the same way. You have to think big picture. And so if you just took in a 5-year-old, you have to remember what it's like to take a newborn and do those first 18 months with the 5-year-old the same way you did your first 18 months with your newborn. Now, for some adoptive families, they never had a newborn. So you have to think, what would I do with a newborn? I would kiss that child. I would love that child. I would coo at that child. I would tell that baby how beautiful they are. I would learn how to communicate with them. I would learn all of their unspoken signals. The first 18 months you build trust. But that's my best advice, to take those first 18 months to 2 years to build a loving relationship. The rest you can deal with later. Once you have built that, then the child knows that the first time you correct them, that it's being done in love. You would never take a newborn and correct them. Never. In any way, especially harshly. You wouldn't do it. You have to think of that child that you just took into your family in that same way as you would a newborn.
The only thing I can think of adding that's really important is that when you make the decision, it's a commitment, it's a permanent commitment.
Yes.
You don't think, oh, we'll try this and see how it goes, if we can handle it or not, or no. It's probably not gonna work if that's the way you go into it. Kind of the same way that, your marriage isn't gonna work if you're like, oh, okay, well, hopefully this will be good. No, so just
Yes.
make up your mind that it's going to be difficult, and you just be prepared and do whatever you need to do to get through that, and because you will get through it if you just have the right attitude.
Yeah.
I would say to kinship families to really, it's worth it, even though you may feel your age, maybe you'll feel tired, you'll feel lack of support. It's worth it. I mean, you're changing the life of a child, as opposed to, going on a cruise. I mean, kind of weigh it. What's the difference? Or whatever you might be doing at that age without the children. Like, don't even question it. You've got to do it and get the help that you need, because there is help. Kids and families.
November 20th, her adoption birthday, we buy a cake, and our family tradition is the adopted child gets to smash her face in the cake. And then the rest of the family, if they want to, gets to smash our faces in the cakes, and then we take pictures.